Mr. Paine, you had occasion to engage in conversation with Lee Oswald at a few times. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, when I first heard of Lee, I was sort of looked forward with eagerness to an opportunity to talk with someone with whom I didn't believe I would agree, but at least it was interesting to talk to a man who had been to Russia and apparently had his own opinions. I tried about 4 times, perhaps 3 or 4 times, to talk in a serious manner with him. Eventually I gave up for the reason that I thought he was not influenced by logic, or didn't let the present reality influence his rather dogmatic way of thinking. And it was therefore useless to talk with him.
What type of feeling did you get about his thinking, though?
Well, he told me that he became a Marxist in this country by reading books and without ever having met a communist. And then he went to Russia, decided he wanted to go to Russia, he told me, and told me he didn't like Russia then, as wanted to return to this country. And I asked him then if he didn't like Russia and liked this country, why did he want to change this country to make it like Russia? And he mentioned repeatedly this principle of his, that he objected to the exploitation of man by man. And this he thought was a moral question. And so we argued. I suggested that in the Soviet Union, by which he means this exploitation of man by man, is that any time that one man makes profit by another man's labor, that is, the first man is exploiting the second man. And that happens every time in every business, every employer and employee relationship, supposedly. But I suggested the same thing happened in the Soviet Union. There was a taxation of every working man's labor there, and the Soviet state took it. This didn't bother him, though. The difference being that in the Soviet Union, so far as in our discussion, it boiled down to this small difference, that in the Soviet Union, that was decided by a person who didn't stand to gain by the decision. A man's wages were set by a man who didn't gain by that decision. In this country, presumably if the employer sets a high wage, or a low wage rather, he will stand to make more profit by it. However, in this country, he would not then object to supposing there were 2 companies. One was run inefficiently, and he employed his employees, we'll say, at the minimum wage, and didn't make any profit. And another man ran his company very efficiently, and could give his employees wages of $2 an hour, but made a 50% profit on it. In that case, that man, in his estimation, was evil, even though the employee made much more money. Everybody made more money. This, it seemed to me, when his total concern hinged upon a small principle of this sort, and was utterly unrelated to the realities of how much the man made, or his standard of living, or his happiness, seemed to me both illogical, or rather, it didn't have. We could no longer talk on that subject.
Did you feel at any time that this type of feeling were the reasons why he wasn't able to find work? Did you?
Yes, I felt that he was perfectly aware of this relationship with his, here's purely conjecture, that he probably felt, I know he felt this relationship to his employer, and he may have voiced it, or he may have shown it in his scorn, which is the way he approached most people, so they felt it. He was aware of it, even if he didn't speak of it to his employer.
Did he wear his, let's say, Marxist views as a badge? Did he use them to gain attention at any time, or were they just there to be talked over?
With me, he spoke very freely, and he complained that with other people he couldn't, they wouldn't talk about political subjects. He would talk about nothing else. Now I read in the papers that he didn't talk with anybody else, or didn't generally talk freely, so I couldn't answer that question. I would say he was the kind of person who likes to put himself in a position of belligerence.
Mr. Paine, did Lee Oswald's political philosophy at any time indicate to you that he may have been capable of the crime he's accused of?
I was very surprised. When I heard that the shot had been fired from the building in which I knew he worked, I thought of him immediately, but dismissed it because I didn't think he was that irrational. I don't see how this act of killing President Kennedy will help any cause that he professed or loved. Certainly, it doesn't help the Soviet Union in any way that I can see. Neither had he ever expressed any animosity to the president. He didn't he liked very few people, but he didn't, I expressed my appreciation of President Kennedy, and he didn't ever argue with me on that point. So it was a surprise to me how this happened. I think it's a lone wolf thing. It was the opportunity presented itself to him, and he probably wanted to make a mark on society by suddenly occurred to him that he could.
Of course, rumors are hard to pin down, but at this time they do feel that this was there is a possibility of his part in an international conspiracy. You don't feel that way at all?
I felt he was a very lonely person and was not aware of any other, his being connected with any other group was probably still as unfamiliar with communists after coming back from Russia as he had been by his report before he went. So that I would not agree with it. That was not my impression.
Did you ever have a chance to talk about Cuban communism or Castro communism? Did he ever express any thoughts on that?
He did mention that, and it was unfamiliar to me, so I didn't take it up. He just happened to mention it briefly, and when it was brought to my attention, I did recall that he had said such a thing. But I don't believe even Castro, who might have the most reason for disliking Kennedy, can see where there's any gain to him by the death of Kennedy. So it looked to me like a stupid, irrational act